Australia's aviation scene in recent times has been abuzz with plenty of new modern aircraft taking to Aussie skies. Australia's big carriers have all began commencing ambitious fleet renewal programs, with Jetstar rolling out their Airbus A321 Neo, Virgin acquiring the first of its Boeing 737 MAX 8 orders, and of course QantasLink's first Airbus A220 flights finally taking to the sky. What if I were to remind you, however, that for a fair majority of the Australian travelling public, next time they set on a plane between Australia's big cities, they'll still be finding themselves embarking on a trusty but aging Boeing 737 or Airbus A320. That's unlikely to change anytime soon. For this reason, I thought it'd be great to see why routine short-haul flight these days is like with Virgin Australia. Airlines so hard hit by the circumstances of 2020, they ended up in voluntary administration and nearly collapsed before being taken over by new owners with significant business restructure that followed. So come join me for this quick morning hop down from Australia's Gold Coast to Australia's largest city of Sydney on an 18-year-old Boeing 737-800, see where Virgin Australia's trusty stalwart can still deliver a respectable flying experience in 2024. Good evening and welcome to Australia's Gold Coast. We're down here at the very famous Surfers Paradise Beach, which really needs no introduction. The Gold Coast very much is world acclaimed as Australia's fun, party and a lifestyle capital, with warm, sunny weather all year round, with miles of white sandy beaches, a fantastic nightlife and numerous theme parks to have a good time. It's no wonder the Gold Coast really is Australia's favourite holiday destination. Anyway, first thing tomorrow morning, we're going to be heading down to Sydney. We're going to be flying on Virgin Australia on their 737-800 aircraft in economy. This flight on a bit of a whim, to be honest. Only this afternoon actually scored a Virgin Velocity points redemption. So yeah, heading down to Sydney pretty cheaply tomorrow. Haven't actually done a quick little hop with Virgin Australia up or down the east coast of Australia in quite some time now. Really looking forward to tomorrow morning's flight, see how Virgin do on a short little domestic flight these days in economy class in 2024 under their sort of new ownership and new management after the pandemic. So without further ado, from here in Surfers Paradise, let's skip forward to tomorrow morning, head down to the Coolangatta Gold Coast Airport and come join me as we fly down to Sydney tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a really good one. And just like that, welcome to Gold Coast Coolangatta Airport. Interestingly enough, this airport is very unique as it actually technically straddles two states. Part of the runway actually spills over into neighbouring New South Wales. That's how far south we are here on the Gold Coast. We're practically down in the Coolangatta Tweeds Head region. Luckily, for all intents and purposes, this airport does operate on Queensland time all year round. Be quite a hassle otherwise because New South Wales observes daylight saving, so they're 1 hour ahead of Queensland. Today we just got the G-Link tram from Cavill Avenue, which is nearby Surfers Paradise, caught that down to Broadbeach and then connected with the 777 bus service all the way down to here in Coolangatta. Certainly not a quick way to get to the airport, takes about an hour or so all up, but yeah, only costs $6.30. Be even cheaper if you had a go-card, so hard to complain. Without further ado, let's now head into the Gold Coast Airport Terminal, get checked in and come join me as we fly down to Sydney today. And before we do that, just a little bit of flight information about today's route down to Sydney. So Coolangatta Airport's approximately 90 kilometres south of Brisbane CBD, right on the New South Wales border. So about 678 kilometre Great Circle distance south down to Sydney today, because their flight time is around 1.5 hours. For your information, the Gold Coast Airport is the 6th busiest airport in the whole of Australia. Immediately prior to the pandemic, passenger numbers peaked at around 6.5 million per year. Interestingly enough, this airport actually does straddle two states. Whilst for all intents and purposes it's considered a part of Queensland for operational reasons, interestingly enough, a large part of it actually straddles over into New South Wales. With the Gold Coast being such a popular tourist destination, you can fly to all Australia's capital cities from here, in addition to several destinations in New Zealand and a small handful of destinations in Southeast Asia serviced by budget carriers. Anyway, on to check-in. For Virgin Australia, the Gold Coast very much is a strong focus city, so check-in is largely automated here on the Gold Coast. You've got both self-service check-in kiosks and self-service bag drop facilities. As today I'm flying all the way to Canberra, merely connecting through Sydney. Actually a little bit apprehensive to use self-service facilities as I want to make sure my bag is actually going to Canberra. Anyway, to use the kiosk, all you got to do is bring up your booking, your name and destination, your velocity number, maybe your passport, any of that sort of stuff should bring up your booking. Then you just select your destination. This is where I'm a little bit confused as whether to select Canberra or Sydney. This is particularly because I actually do have a direct flight to Canberra. So it's at this point I become not very sure if I only just check into Sydney, whether my bag will actually go all the way through to Canberra. So at this point, just for my own peace of mind, I think I'll play it safe and go to a manual counter just to 100% ensure my bag is going through to Canberra. And just like that, we're all checked in for our flight with Virgin down to Sydney today. Actually continuing on, just connecting through Sydney today, actually continuing on with Link Airways through to Canberra on their Saab 340. Airways do operate the Canberra to Sydney route now on behalf of Virgin Australia. So that meant I did have to check in my bag all the way through to Canberra. Just wanted to play it safe to ensure my bag was actually being checked in all the way through to Canberra. So I just decided to go to a manned check-in where it took about 5 to 10 minutes to get served. Interestingly enough, the priority queue was actually significantly longer than the regular queue. Only one person on each counter. So the funny thing is I actually got served quicker as a regular customer than a priority. Anyway, friendly check-in today, and yeah, now we're all ready to go to Sydney. So let's do this. And just like that, we're through security here at Gold Coast Coolangatta Airport. Once again, it appears we've got the latest in CT scanners, so absolutely nothing needed to come out of my bag, which was really convenient considering I have drones, cameras, laptops, MacBooks, everything like that these days. So that's really convenient. 4 or 5 times in a row now I haven't been selected for secondary screening as well, so really quite pleased with that. So one of the unique things about Gold Coast Coolangatta Airport is the fact that the runway actually straddles 2 states, New South Wales and Queensland. Just checked on my maps and at the food court we appear to be only less than 50 metres to the state line with New South Wales. So let's now just walk over the international departures area and see if we can technically cross the state border. Should be an interesting one. According to our map here, it's very hard to decipher whether we're in New South Wales or Queensland. Let's just go up these escalators. Let's go to the international departures area and see if we've crossed the state border. And just like that, I've gone up to the escalator to the area where you would depart if you've got an international flight. And looking at my little map there, we have officially crossed into New South Wales according to Google Maps. So that's a very little interesting quirk about Gold Coast Airport. Interestingly enough, despite appearing across the state line, my phone actually didn't change time, nor did my watch. So I think based on my own research here, it appears that the international terminal may very well be in New South Wales, while the domestic terminal is largely in Queensland, while the runway itself straddles both states. After all, I think the airport located in 2 states is more of a trivial rather than serious matter. After all, airports in Australia are located on federal land and come under the control of the Australian Federal Police. Where it probably does get tricky is for pilots coming into the Gold Coast from the south, where they're coming in on New South Wales time. Could also affect the timing of Gold Coast Airport curfew as well, depending on whether it's daylight saving or not in New South Wales. So with some of my finest yet unofficial investigative journalism out of the way, I think it's better time we head back towards Gate 15 where our Virgin Australia ride down to Sydney today to Pasture and join the boarding queue and check out some of the finer details of our ride taking us down to the harbour city this morning. As you can see out there, we've got a Boeing 737-800 series aircraft. It's first delivered to the former name of this airline, which of course was Virgin Blue, but in March 2005. Then obviously came under the renamed Virgin Australia back in May 2011. At time of taking this flight, the aircraft was shy under 19 years of age. The registration on this one is Victor Hotel, Victor Uniform Echo. Despite being a considerably busy airport, so much so that actually has international flights and is actually the busiest non-capital city airport in the whole country, there actually doesn't appear to be any aero bridges here on the Gold Coast. So that means there's a little bit of a short walk out to our aircraft today, but I certainly don't mind that. Love seeing all the planes out there up and close. To speed up the boarding process, many airlines here on the Gold Coast do board by both the front and rear stairs. I'm sitting very close to the rear of the aircraft today, so I'll be boarding through the ladder. So welcome aboard our Boeing 737-800 aircraft for Virgin Australia. In this aircraft you'll find a total of 176 seats. At the front of the aircraft there is a small cosy business class cabin that has 8 seats in a standard 2-2 configuration. At the back of the aircraft there's an additional 28 rows across 3-3 standard configuration. Notwithstanding the 5 rows of Economy X seating on this aircraft, which Virgin Australia claim have up to 40% extra legroom, the standard economy class seats on Virgin Australia 737-800 have an incredibly average seat pitch of just 30 inch. However, this is pretty well the norm for narrow body aircraft, very much on par with Qantas and marginally better than Jetstar. At your seat you also find a fairly unremarkable standard fold-out tray-back table and also your in-flight literature, which includes a safety briefing card and the in-flight buy on board menu. So very much just a short haul everyday economy class seat here with Virgin Australia. Certainly no extra modern bells and whistles like you'll see on some of the newer aircraft coming across Australia's fleets these days. Interestingly enough, there does appear to be inoperable volume controls in the centre armrest. Maybe back in the day Virgin Blue had overhead monitors or a radio system you could listen to. That wasn't all uncommon way to get your entertainment with communal screens back in the 90s and early 2000s. I probably only took several Virgin Blue flights when I was younger, so I didn't really take much note, to be honest. So if you do remember if these volume controls had any purpose back in the Virgin Blue days, please do let me know in the comments down below. So without further ado, what better time now to sit back, relax and enjoy our stunning takeoff out of Coolangatta this morning. Then once firmly in the air, on our way down to Sydney this morning, I'll then go over what you can expect with Virgin Australia's in-flight experience. that we're firmly in the air on our way down to Sydney this morning, let's first have a look at the Virgin Australia buy on board menu for economy class passengers. So do take note, since the restructure and new ownership back in 2020, Virgin Australia has largely moved to a buy on board system. So that means no longer there is complimentary food or drinks. That's with the exception of course, tea, coffee and water. Everything else you've got to pay for these days. So buy on board menu has a good range of soft drinks, teas, coffees and light snacks as well. There's also packaged duo options there where you can pair drinks with snacks. Really the most substantial sort of items you're going to get are noodles or toasted sandwiches. On selected international flights over 4 hours, there is a small range of hot meals available as well. Did find some of the menu items to be a little bit on the pricey side, even for airline standards, probably a couple dollars more than what you'd pay for comparable items on Jetstar or Rex. On the rear of the menu, you also find information on how to access the in-flight stream-to-your-own device entertainment system. More on that a little bit later. With Virgin moving to a largely buy-on-board system, it would be tempting to label the carrier a low-cost airline these days. Probably not entirely fair representation, however, as they do, however, still offer free coffee, tea and water, which is probably going to cost you $4 or $5 on Jetstar. Whilst Virgin Australia never really have been a full-service carrier in the true scheme of things, over the years they have offered a number of complementary inclusions which certainly have set them apart from a low-cost carrier. So in many ways, Virgin are probably not too similar to many full-service European carriers operating on short-haul flights, also domestic flights on US flagship carriers. That is, luggage comes at an additional cost and most food and beverage on board is at your own expense. Definitely one reason to argue why Virgin Australia still shouldn't be considered a low-cost carrier is the onboard stream-to-your-own device entertainment system. Just like with Qantas system, you'll find there's a fairly good range of movies, TV shows and children's content in addition to the moving map. Pleased to say you no longer need the Virgin Australia Entertainment app to bring up the IFE. All you gotta do is follow the prompts, put your phone or device into flight mode, turn on Wi-Fi, and yeah, you can bring it up in your own web browser. Unlike some Qantas aircraft, far as I'm aware, there is no personal in-flight entertainment screens available on any Virgin Australia aircraft these days, since they dispose of the Airbus A320s. Aside from that, there's not a lot more to report about today's flight. We're now making good progress on our way down to Sydney. Pretty smooth flying conditions overall. But yeah, do decide to have a mid-flight refreshment, so do order a Bolter XPA beer. Costs $12, so certainly on the steeper side, but definitely one of the better beers you can get in the sky in Australia. Just like that, not even after barely even an hour in the air, we're now well on our way descending into Sydney. So what better time now to just sit back, relax and enjoy our lovely landing into the harbour city today. Then once on the ground, I'll offer my final thoughts and assessment about today's Virgin Australia experience. And just like that, as we taxi to the gate and get ready to disembark into the terminal building, let me just offer a few thoughts about what I think about the overall state of Virgin Australia in 2024 is like, and how Australia's second biggest airline performs these days under new ownership, management and business restructure. And whether Australia's classic middle ground airline still delivers value for money and still maintains relevance in 2024. So in a nutshell, by this I mean, is Virgin Australia worth paying a premium to fly over Jetstar with? And is it worth flying a Virgin Australia if it's only a marginal cost saving over that of Qantas, or even Regional Express, which is a lot more all-inclusive airline these days? So in breaking down this dilemma, there's many considerations to really think of. But I think in a nutshell, if Jetstar had a sale fare that was considerably cheaper than a Virgin Australia, I'd definitely fly a Jetstar, save the money, because at the end of the day you're still going to have to pay extra for luggage and food and beverage on Virgin Australia. You really just got to put a cost on how much extra you're willing to pay for that complimentary cup of tea or coffee, and of course the stream to your own device entertainment. One thing I really do like about Jetstar these days is their different bundles that you can purchase. So yeah, if you want extra flexibility and you want extra inclusions, it's really easy to get with Jetstar. And some of the more inclusive bundles also give you opportunity to earn Qantas points and also flexibility to change or even cancel your flight for a credit. So in my opinion, the flexibility is nowhere near as cheap with Virgin Australia. Meanwhile, if the cost saving is only $10, $20, maybe even $30, flying Virgin Australia is probably a bit of a no-brainer over Jetstar in my opinion. Maybe even $50 or so more if flying coast to coast. Because at the end of the day, you still got to put a value on the several extra inclusions that Virgin Australia offer that Jetstar don't. Also got to put a value on their very extensive route network around the country and quite extensive frequency of service on popular routes. Also, if you are invested in the Velocity Frequent Flyer program, you do have to put a value on being able to stack points on every flight you take, which gives you a possibility to upgrade or redeem for business class flights in the future. And of course, if you've got gold status or above, you're going to get access to Virgin's lounge network before you fly as well. Keep in mind, however, Jetstar passengers still can get in with the right Qantas status as well before their flight. And of course, Qantas have a much bigger lounge network than that of Virgin Australia. Moving on to Rex, if the opportunity arises to give them a go, if you find a fare at a comparable price to Virgin Australia, maybe even marginally more, definitely worth giving them a go, because at the end of the day you do get included baggage allowance, also sweet and savoury snack, also tea, coffee, all that sort of stuff. They even got you streamed to your own device, so very good inclusions on Rex. That's notwithstanding the hard reality, however, that Virgin Australia and indeed Qantas's lounge network are far superior. Obviously the frequency and range of services are much better. And finally, when it comes to Qantas, unless you have any sort of strong brand loyalty to Virgin, in terms of cost saving, really don't think saving maybe $20, $30 flying Virgin is really worth not flying Qantas over. Which I think stands even more true, especially if you're going to be travelling with checked luggage that you'd have to pay extra with a Virgin, and if you intend to have food and beverage on the flight, also got to pay extra with Virgin. So I think at the end of the day, it isn't really a zero-sum game as to whether Virgin Australia rightfully stand its place as a middle ground carrier in Australia. So it really just comes down to your budget, your purpose of travel, your need for travel, and any particular brand loyalties that you may have. I think for me personally, someone who doesn't have any particularly strong brand loyalty to any of Australia's big airlines, someone who does enjoy travelling on all of them on different times and for different purposes, would at the end of the day probably consider Virgin Australia worth paying marginally more than a Jetstar for, but likewise wouldn't really consider a marginal saving over Qantas worth worrying about. That being said, if you do have an advanced level of Velocity status, things such as complimentary baggage allowance, priority check-in and preferential seating may be enough to seal the deal over flying with Qantas anyway. And just like that, welcome to Sydney, New South Wales. Pretty routine journey today on Virgin Australia on the 737-8 FE aircraft. all the way down from the Gold Coast to here in Sydney. Overall, yeah, it was a pretty uneventful flight, to be honest. There wasn't anything remarkably amazing about it, but there wasn't anything remarkably poor about it either. Pros of the flight, definitely left a few minutes early and consequently arrived early, so punctuality was good. In-flight, stream to your own device, entertainment system always works very efficiently on Virgin. So yeah, they're the pros. Going to minor criticisms of today's flight. First things first, I thought the aircraft is 18 years old, so it's definitely getting up there in age. Probably actually older than many of the aviation and travel YouTubers out there on the internet at the moment, to be honest. And yeah, for a reasonably old plane, certainly was showing signs a bit of wear and tear. And yeah, a legroom isn't that great. It's more than fine for a short little hop between Sydney and Melbourne, or the Gold Coast and Sydney, or whatever that flight might be on the East Coast. But yeah, for some of the longer flights, coast to coast, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane to Perth, something like that, it's definitely going to be a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you're a tall traveller like me. Other slight criticism is onboard food and beverage menu. It does seem a little bit pricey in my opinion. Some of the items are probably a couple dollars more expensive than, you know, the comparable items that you would get on Rex or Jetstar. So from here at Sydney Airport Terminal 2, thanks so much for watching today's flight review as we've travelled with Virgin Australia on their 737-8FE down from the Goldie all the way down to Sydney. Really hope you have enjoyed this flight review. If you have, really appreciate it. Do give it a like, leave your comments down below. Most importantly, do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Whatever brings you to my channel, flight reviews, train reviews, walking tours, hikes, drives, whatever it may be. If you do enjoy my content, really appreciate if you just take those few couple seconds to subscribe to the channel, if you haven't already, of course, and hit that bell and notification button so you won't miss another one. Really motivates me to produce better and better content for you guys. You may also wish to visit my website, AussieJetSetter.com.au, for those in flight reviews, industry news, destination guides, frequent flyer hacks and more. Also, I'll put a link in my socials to my dedicated Discord server for fans and community of the channel to discuss all things aviation and travel. Also put a link to my Instagram page and AussieJetSetter Shorts channel in the description below as well, so you can keep up with my short form content covering where I am in the world in real time. From here at Sydney Airport, thanks so much for watching today and safe travels wherever that might take you.